Well, now we are going to move on to our next presentation. And Katie, can you say hello?
Hey, how are you? All right, looks like I'm a little bit of.
All right, Katie, you're coming in a little low. Can you try turning your volume up?
Is that better? Hello? Is that better?
Yeah, see if you can turn the volume just up on your computer. See if that would help.
Hello? Is that a little better? Otherwise, I'll
That's much better. Wonderful.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Katie Ellet. I'm the president of Hydrogen Energy and Mobility for Air Liquide. First, I want to say thank you. These are really difficult acts to follow. I'm impressed and inspired by the remarkable women that have been on the call so far. So I was asked today to speak about personal branding. And if you'd asked me probably 10 years ago to talk about personal branding, I likely would have had a very different take on it than I have today. In fact, I'm not even sure I would have thought much about it at all. And I might have even said it was superfluous. Because at that point in my life.
Katie, you need to share, and if you could, you're sharing your notes and on your slides right now.
Okay, sorry about that.
All right. You had it up before.
Apologize for the technical difficulties here.
Oh, good. Is
that not working? It tells me it's showing.
Yeah, no, you had it up before. I don't know what happened, but now all I see is your notes. Let me try.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Why don't you stop sharing? Stop sharing your screen.
All right, I am trying.
You should have still had. Stop share. It's like in the very middle.
Hold on. I mean, it says it. No.
We promised people, we practiced. All right, now try to share the slides again. Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And just click the slideshow. Wait, no, I want to wait again. Huh. Okay, there we go. Looks great. Thank you.
It does work this way?
That's just like that. It looks, okay. That's how it works.
All right. Yeah, I'm so sorry about all that. Okay, so I was talking about personal branding and how, back 10 years ago, I probably would have said it was superfluous because really I was focused on just doing the very best I could at work, being the best spouse and parent that I could be, being there for my sisters, maybe sneaking in a workout every now and then. I wouldn't have said I spent any time on personal brand. I would have said it was all about survival at that point. But I'm at a little different stage in my life now, and I've learned a couple of things along the way. And if I could go back and give myself, my earlier self, a little bit of advice, I would. One of the things I would tell myself is to spend some time thinking about it, as I think that would have helped me navigate a few challenges more smoothly, quickly, would have helped me be more intentional in how I spend my time and my effort. So what do we talk about what do we mean when we talk about brand? When I talk about brand, I think what it means to me is really just figuring out who you are and how you want to present yourself to the world. And I could argue that it's more important for me now, as I do quite a bit of internal and external speaking for the company these days. But I don't really think that's true. That's not really what it's about. Every one of us has a significant influence on the lives around us, from our children to our coworkers to people we meet every day at the grocery store. But we're also faced with a myriad of questions and decisions that have to be made on a daily basis. And if we don't know who we are, we risk losing ourselves and being who others want us to be. And that puts us at risk for burnout, midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. And really, I think it just keeps you from reaching your own full potential. So I think that the concept of intersectionality is really important when we think about authenticity, because we all have in common that we're women, but we came from different places. Our experiences, beliefs, values, all of those things are different. And I'm now a believer that defining that brand is, again, really about discovering your authentic self. It's about becoming that person that you were meant to be. So how do we define who we are. How do we define our personal brand? I think we start at a base level. We really define the roles in our lives that are important to us, the parts of our background that impact the way that we think about the world. But I'd also encourage you to go a bit deeper and, not necessarily to put on a slide for everyone to see, but to really understand your personal philosophies around the things that matter. For instance, I have two sons. My relationship with them is extremely important to me. So one of the best things that I did early in my parenting life was to spend some time really thinking about and actually researching what kind of parent that I wanted to be. What did I really want my boys to get out of their childhood? What kind of values did I want to instill? So I spent time on specific questions like, what is my philosophy on discipline? And it helped me to define it early. And that was quite helpful, as in the heat of the moment, in the heat of the battle per se, you really don't have time to develop a philosophy. You need to know how you want to respond before. The same concept really applies to managing employees. If you know what kind of boss you want to be, it helps you respond in the heat of the moment accordingly and intentionally, rather just reactionally to whatever situation is in front of you. So as I mentioned, that idea of understanding who you are and what you want to be really does help in reacting intentionally in the moment. But as we build our identity, we also build confidence in ourselves, and our actions and that external view starts to align back to that. Really, and understanding who you are helps you determine where you want to go and also who you want to go there with. It can make sure that we're spending our time and talents where they belong. So for instance, when I was at a different point in my career, I worked for a company where the motto on every billboard was, "People are our greatest asset." And I loved that. It wove a common value thread through our management team, and it really materially impacted the way that we made decisions. However, there was an ownership change, and that new leadership didn't subscribe to the same principles. There was a cultural shift. We ended up with high turnover, internal competitiveness, and really what felt like a lack of respectful engagement that didn't align personally to my identity and values. And understanding what type of workplace culture did align to my personal brand helped me make the decision to leave, but would have probably helped me do that earlier without some pain along the way. But it did help me screen some opportunities as well to find a place that was a much better fit. So how I'd say this is, to reach your full potential, I think you have to figure out how to move from me to we. You have to build a meaningful support framework around you that aligns with your values and needs. I think I used to consider it just a matter of grit or resilience to stick it out in a hard situation. And there is definitely the time for grit. No situation is going to be perfect. Only you can decide what's right for you. But remember, you can swim a lot faster moving with the current than you can if you're swimming against it. So sticking with that swimming analogy, networking is an important piece of aligning yourself with that current. The importance of building that support network personally and professionally can't be understated. I think sometimes women consider it to be disingenuous to try to begin a relationship for what seems to be an inherently selfish reason. But one of my most important mentors really set me straight on that. He told me that you should approach networking just as you approach customer relationships, which for me and for the lessons he taught me, the goal is really to find the win-win situation. So you're trying to build a support network for you, but also for them. And that means you really shouldn't enter it with purely selfish intentions. And we had a great discussion about mentorship earlier. And I'll say, when I have been officially the mentor, I believe I actually get as much out of that relationship as the person that I'm mentoring. Sometimes just a different perspective on a topic, or a reminder to go back and communicate clearly to the larger team about the why of what we're doing. So you may not actually even know how you're going to help that person that you're engaging with, that you're networking with today, but open yourself to the duality of the relationship. So let's talk about unveiling the brand and what that really means. I don't think it means getting a makeover or launching a new website, or really necessarily any big change. But I think it means being more intentional about who we are and blending more of our authentic selves into our daily lives, including where we spend some time. where we spend our time. So I had someone tell me the other day about a simple, but I actually think pretty brilliant framework for determining where there may be disconnects in your life. The proposal was that you just list the who and what that are important to you, everything from your dog to personal fitness to your career. And then you write down how much of your time and energy you spend on each of those things. So just a quick warning, you may not like the results of the exercise. I didn't love it when I did that, but really understanding where there's misalignment can help you bridge those gaps. It may very likely help you carve out the specific time to nurture the relationships, skills, or hobbies that steer you closer to that person that you really want to be. So in full disclosure, our branding and communications manager built these slides, and there was no way she was going to turn over a presentation to me that didn't include aligning your personal brand with your online presence. So early in my career, I probably tended to lump this into that same category that I thought about even things like how I dressed. It didn't matter that much to me. But I'd say I would have said it's what inside that counts in the work that I do, which is true at its core. You are more than appearance, and you're more than even the work that you do. But there is also a stark truth. People do respond to the way that you represent yourself. Personally, I love almost anything that Malcolm Gladwell has written. He's one of my favorite authors. And one of his books is called Blink. Blink talks about what happens in really the microseconds of our first interactions. And for better or for worse, we all make assumptions based on our experiences and our impressions. That's actually one of the reasons why the understanding our own cognitive biases that's such an important part of diversity. What I would encourage you to do is to recognize that is a reality and be intentional about your online presence. I don't believe that means you shouldn't be your authentic self. We've probably all had times where we've questioned whether we should comment on something on Facebook or even whether we should follow a particular influencer on LinkedIn. You have to make the individual decisions that are right for you, but do understand that it impacts how people see you. That doesn't mean you need to be generic, and I would actually encourage you not to be. Stand up, be yourself, stand up for what you believe in. Just be intentional about it, and think about what you're posting, whether it adds or subtracts from that personal view of who you want to be and how others reflect on you. So let's circle back to what we've talked about. We talked about spending time thinking about what it is that you value, who you want to be, and how you want to add value to the world. Really defining that brand through intentionally taking time to think through those things. And then finding ways to build, foster, and maintain support networks that align to your authentic self. Build on that mutual assistance and engagement. Also give yourself time and space to grow. Understand that who you are now is not the same necessarily as who you'll be 5 years from now or 10 years from now. One of the earlier speakers talked about growth mindset. I think that's a really important piece of this. And understand that the payoff doesn't come in a specific package. It's not the same for everyone, but the benefits here they look like being more comfortable in your own skin, spending time doing things that align to your values, and having great relationships that are mutually supportive. Finally, understand that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Enjoy the journey. Know who you are, and aligning what your actions, what your daily activities are to those values really will pay significant dividends in the end. So thank you for your time and attention.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. And yes, as a reminder, if anybody would like to ask Katie a live question, you can unmute yourself, or you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. So let's start with some questions that have come in from our chat. This one from Margaret says, Katie, do you have a mentor from a previous company that you continue to interact with? And if so, why?
So I do. I will say that the mentorships that I've had, either when I've been the mentor or when I've been the mentee, have been more organically derived. There was just a connection there, and so there was a natural fit, a natural chemistry per se, and we continued that. So there was a gentleman, that I met a dozen years ago when he was doing a consulting project, and I loved the way he thought about things. He really changed the way that I approached, that I really thought about customer value, commercial excellence. And I did ask him to formally mentor me, and he did, and we still to this day speak, at least monthly, sometimes weekly. And he's probably approaching 80, and I want to bubble wrap him and keep him forever. So it's been a very important relationship in my life.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. And this question came from another question from Margaret. And Margaret says, have you experienced imposter syndrome? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Oh, absolutely. I think, it's actually not just women that experience imposter syndrome. I mean, I have spoken to many men who, when they're really being honest, they experience it as well. I think all of us, especially as you ascend to a new role, it's bigger, it's scary, right? New job. The way that I approach it generally is to say, I don't have to know everything in this situation. It's not expected that I know everything in this situation, but I've learned to trust myself and trust myself to be authentic and genuine and be open in those situations. Strive to be the best version of myself and trust that the outcome is going to be good at the end of the day. And that's sometimes more difficult to say than it is to do, but you just put one foot in front of the other and move forward, and suddenly you've actually moved into the shoes that you want to fill.
Well, that's wonderful. So I think we have time for maybe one more question before we go to our final presentation from Anne this afternoon. And Erin says, should I take down photos and comments from 14 years ago? They're good memories, but maybe not professional. And she says, I was 17.
Yeah, I think some of us were very fortunate actually to grow up after everything that we did was immortalized on social media. I think it's a personal decision. If things embarrass you, they're not a reflection of values that you want to present, then I would say take them down. For me, if it's fairly innocent and it's just a sort of fills in the character of who you are, then I think that's great, and I wouldn't see any reason to take it down. But again, we all have to make the individual decisions. I don't think there's a right or a wrong.
Well, that's great advice. So before we move on to our final presentation, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom for all of our viewers today?
It sounds to me like that there's a lot of really rich, wonderful content in these presentations. I think that the speakers here, the panelists, have had a lot to offer. So I would just encourage people to reach out, make connections, and learn from these wonderful women.
Well, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.